My name is Mohamed Sidibay. I am 10 years old and live in Sierra Leone, West Africa. Sierra Leone is a very small and beautiful country. It has long beaches, tall green mountains, and the people are very nice. But in Sierra Leone, there was a terrible tragedy. In 1999, the RUF descended upon the capital, Freetown, causing death and destruction. I too witnessed what they did because I was forced to go with them. I was a combatant. I was a child soldier. In 2001, a year before the war ended, I escaped to Freetown with the help of an Italian priest. My life soon began to change for the better. I joined an education program called Erin, a worldwide community of youth who use the internet to talk and learn from each other. I was very happy because I have met another youth. And when I came first, I didn't know anything about the computer, how to operate a computer. And I know how to send an email address. And also I know how to play games in a computer. I am back in school now, bracing myself through hard work to reach my dreams with all of my friends and the ability to share my story with the world. I am not alone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I was the little boy in that movie. I am a peace activist. I am a student. I am a couch potato. I was a former child soldier in my home country of Sierra Leone, and I will be your host for tonight. We have an hour and a half in this room here tonight to imagine what peace is going to feel like. Because if we can feel it, we're going to make it happen. We're going to live it, and we're going to transmit it to others. It takes hard work, and it takes creativity. I want us to imagine peace through everything that we do here tonight. Through our eyes, our senses, our heart, through our minds, through everything that our body has to give us. I am going to tell you about my journey and about the people that the My Hero organization has introduced me to. My name is Mohamed Sidibay. I left that part out, sorry. But some of us have come from far, and some of us have come from near. But we're all here today because we're activists and because we're voices for the voiceless. If something brought you here tonight, you, my friend, you have a peace story to tell. In 1995, a few mothers came together to launch the My Hero Project. The mission, to celebrate the best of humanity. But not just to celebrate. Celebrating is a lot of fun. But we also want to inspire individuals who want to make a positive change in the world. In this past year, the My Hero website received over 20 million visitors from 197 countries. Here's a brief history of what the My Hero Project is all about. Enjoy.
The My Hero Project uses the power of media and technology to honor the heroes throughout the world who battle daily against ignorance, intolerance, and indifference. We celebrate those who try to make the world a better place. The well-known and the little-known people who see a problem and try to fix it. We celebrate the better angels of our nature. We celebrate the best of humanity. Since 1995, visitors of all ages have helped build this award-winning web project, sharing stories, art, films, and music that shed light on some of the greatest challenges and most courageous efforts of our time. Students use My Hero's multimedia authoring tools to create, share, and publish media that honors local and global heroes, with our audience of visitors from 194 countries. Teachers use My Hero for character education and life skills classes, and to help students develop critical thinking and 21st century media literacy skills. The My Hero Teachers Room provides standards-aligned lesson plans in creative writing, global studies, English, ESL, social science, current events, art, music, filmmaking, and more. Through workshops, festivals, and online mentorships, our team works to support thousands of teachers each year who use My Hero's freely accessible digital archive and media resources to enrich learning for millions of students around the world. In the process, My Hero provides cross-cultural learning opportunities, an appreciation of diversity, and communication tools to empower young people to effect positive change in the world. Visit the My Hero Project to see how you can become part of this global learning community.
I saw my first murder at 3. The rebels came to my home and killed my parent. They forced me from my house to be a child soldier. Even as a kid, I knew that my life would be forever changed. I didn't know how and in what direction, but I knew that the people that took me were not good people. Their faces were as pale as a white sheet of paper. Lips cracked, dried, and barren. Eyes bloodshot. Their voices raspy. And no matter how hard they tried to smile, they couldn't, because what made him smile was what made him human, and what made him human was long gone. The smile on my face has disappeared. My innocence had been lost. My toys had been replaced with an AK-47, and the sudden change in my life was too quick to be true, and I couldn't grasp onto my new reality, so I kept wishing that it was a dream. The more I saw my first 6 months with the Revolutionary United Front, the more I kept wishing and hoping that it'll all go away soon. But the fact of the matter was, what I was going through was in a dream. That was my new life, and for the longest time, I refused to accept that. I was being trained to be a child soldier. Now imagine me at 4, carrying an AK-47. I barely weigh more than the gun with my height, size, and weight. Sun Tzu, the author of The Art of War, once said, "In the midst of chaos, there is opportunity. In the midst of chaos, there is opportunity." I was determined to get away. I had a plan. Well, at least I thought I did. After 2 weeks, 2 weeks later, after the killing of the boys who tried to run away, my commanders were certain that no one in their right mind would try to run away again. No one in their right mind will try to run away again. I decided it was finally my time to execute the perfect plan my 3.5-year-old brain had come up with. So I left to use the bathroom. Now, the bathroom was walking to the bush and finding a nice place to squat in a while and take a shit. On my way to the bathroom, I ran into Usman. Let me tell you about Usman. Usman was a brusque-mannered man who was my commanding officer, and I feared and hated him. He was a short, stocky, middle-aged man who was always pissed off about something. He wasn't tall or handsome. He had missing teeth, barely any hair on his head, uneducated. Thus, he always had to overcompensate for what he was lacking in looks, height, sense of humor, and intellect. He said in his authoritative voice, "Which side you think say you to go?" After months of planning, one word from Usman, and I almost lost it. I started shaking. My palms started sweating. At this point, he was becoming more and more suspicious of me. And everyone knows not to get Usman suspicious, because suspicion for Usman means guilt, and guilt for him means death. Not hearing what I said the first time, he then asked me again, this time sounding more agitated. I tried to speak to him, but the only thing that came out of my mouth was fear. But then I heard the sound of a more friendly voice, and that was the voice of Musa. When Musa said my name, Mohamed, I somehow managed to get hold back of the situation. Still scared, but at least I could formulate a simple response and said I was going to the bathroom. The perfect plan, remember? I guess one good thing came out of my interaction with the devil himself after all. Without looking back, I continued to walk into the thick forest. I could hear his footsteps behind me, but slowly and surely they stopped to fade away until I could hear them no more. I was finally away. Or at least I thought I was. I didn't know what direction was I going to run to, or where was I heading. I couldn't go home because I was far away from home and I wouldn't know how to get there. Regardless, I started to run. I ran and ran and ran until I came across a river, another variable that was unaccounted for. I couldn't cross the river because I didn't know how to swim. So I stood there waiting for a miracle of some sort. From the distance through the thick forest, I could hear the sounds of many voices. I couldn't quite make out what they were saying, but I knew one thing, and that they were looking for me, and if I get caught, well, if I get caught, I'm dead. Again, I find myself trapped. But this time, with no excuse for why I was 2 hours away from base. My plan to run away was almost perfect until I ran into Usman. There's no doubt that he was the one that alerted my commander, CO Rambo, that I had tried to run away. If only I hadn't ran into Usman that morning, I would have had at least 2 hours head start on them. If only I would have made a rational decision to postpone my trip, I would have had a better chance of getting away. If only the river wasn't there. If only I knew how to swim. But the thing about could have and should have and would have is that by then it's already too late. No matter what I do now, I was going to get caught. Unless I grew wings and flew out of there, or a boat appeared out of thin air. But let's face it, none of those things were going to happen. All along, I thought I was ready to die to gain my freedom. But when the time finally came, I wasn't ready to die. I decided that I was going to walk towards them and shorten the distance between us. I went back with them. I was beaten. They poured hot melted plastic on my skin, but I survived. After years of senseless killing, the war finally ended. The war ended because people started asking questions. The why questions, the what questions. Those are the questions that I asked myself, the questions that brought me to America, the questions that brought me to this stage here tonight. We here at the My Hero Project are looking for individuals who motivate us to make a positive change in the world. If something brought you here tonight, you have a peace story to tell. Robert Shetterly is an artist who has painted over 200 portraits of individuals who are models of courageous citizenship. He addresses issues of social, environmental, and political fairness. We stand witness to his vision of peace through his art. My hero honors him for his continued commitment to depicting Americans who tell the truth. Robert Shetterly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
What a story. I've never heard that before. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mohamed. I had not heard his story. I'm a little speechless right now. I want to thank My Hero Project for bringing me here. It's been an extraordinary few days. And I am so grateful to be honored by them, by an organization that is so high in my own estimation of doing great work in this country and all over the world to help make peace and to present the same kind of models for young people that I'm trying to do with my work. So I thank you, all of you connected with My Hero. And everyone in my organization, Americans Who Tell the Truth, is very pleased that this is happening. When I was about 20 years old, I started to draw. I had not done art before that. And it was a total revelation to me. As soon as I picked up a pencil and began to look at the world, it was as though I was seeing it for the very first time. I mean, I knew the word for something like flower. But if you asked me to draw a flower, I couldn't possibly have done it because I never really looked at it. And when I started to draw and paint, everything changed for me. And very quickly that went from looking at individual things in nature to being able to look at emotions and ideas and feelings and using art to explore them, and then to be able to explore issues in the world. And the more I did that, again, it was a revelation. However, as I gradually adopted and matured into a voice as an artist, I never would have believed that I would be painting portraits, which was not on my agenda at all, nor the kind of portraits that I'm painting today that have words scratched into the surface of them. That came about because of what happened at 9/11 and right afterwards. Not the 9/11 experience itself, but I'm sure anyone close to my age or something like that will remember that within a few days of 9/11, our government began a process of using fear and propaganda and patriotism and racism to manipulate all of us into war. I should say, another war that didn't need to be fought. And I was thinking, in the little town I live in the coast of Maine, what can I do at this moment? I was feeling so alienated, so angry at my own country for allowing this to happen. Not just at the government, but the media, the people who were allowing it. And what could I do? And I struggled with that a long time until one day in my studio, I looked up at my own studio wall and there were quotes from people that I had put there from time to time that I admired. And there was this quote from Walt Whitman that said, it was his commandment to all of us. He said, "This is what you shall do. Love the earth, the sun, and the animals. despise riches. Devote your wealth and labor to others. Argue not concerning God. Give alms to anyone who asks, and take off your hat to nothing known or unknown. And what he meant by that is everything in the created world is essentially equal. No thing needs to take off his hat and bow down to anything else. I was so moved by that. It was like this was a statement of the essential notion of democracy, something that seemed completely missing from our country today. And I said, I will paint his portrait. I'll scratch his words into the surface, and I will feel better. I mean, any of you know who do any kind of art at all that that's often the first impulse with our art is to make ourselves feel better. And I did that, but then I couldn't stop. You know, as soon as I painted that portrait, I had to paint another one. And I started what has now been a 13-year exploration of American history, of citizenship, of the responsibility of all of us, to try to make a safer and more peaceful world, and to honor those people and then hold them up as examples to everyone else. It's been a terrific journey, and it's brought me here, and I'm so grateful to be here. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sometimes you have to step away and look at the world to be able to see how interconnected humankind and all other species on the planet are. Seeing the Earth from the perspective of outer space, doesn't that give you a feeling of peace? Doesn't it make us feel the unity of all species as one? We spend so much time highlighting our differences, white, black, Jews, Arab, rich, poor, that most times we forget how similar we really are. When it comes to the environment, we are the perpetrators, we are the victims, and we are the witnesses. And our Earth, our home, needs protecting. The next performance is by a man who has made it his lifelong goal to show us how beautiful and peaceful our planet is from far above. Kenji Williams is an award-winning filmmaker, music producer, violinist. Through collaborations with NASA scientists, Kenji creates works that bridges science, music, and visual art. We are honored to introduce to you my Hero Media Award winner, creator of Bella Gaia, which means beautiful earth, Kenji Williams, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mohamed. It's such a great honor to be here amongst such inspirational people like Robert and Mohamed. Thank you, my hero, for inviting me here. My name is Kenji. I'm the director and composer of Bella Gaia, which means beautiful earth. And I got the idea to make this project from meeting an astronaut who lived on the space station, and his story of how he had this complete life-changing transformation, seeing the earth from space out his window for the very first time, and seeing our earth with an atmosphere just 20 miles thick and this living blue bubble of life floating in the blackness of space. And he came back to Earth with a much greater appreciation for our planet. And so I was so inspired by this story, got me thinking, how could I bring this experience, this transformative experience of seeing the Earth from space to those of us who can't yet go to space? And thus Bella Gaia was born, and it has been a complete sort of organically growing process, getting great support from places like NASA. And what it has turned into is sort of an immersive audiovisual exploration of the relationship between humans and nature, but using this sort of emotive and poetic audiovisual language of music with data visualizations from NASA, scientific visualizations, and also cultural footage. So I hope you enjoy the short 10-minute sample. The full show is about 80 minutes long with dancers and musicians, and I hope that we can bring that here to LA someday. So thank you very much.
Cloud formed as a result of a dust storm over the Sahara and caught up by air currents, reached the Philippines and settled there with rain. I understood that we are all sailing in the same boat.
Thank you for that lovely performance. Our air, our children, our water, these are precious resources and they're not infinite. They're not infinite. We here at the My Hero organization celebrate people who take it upon themselves to protect and to educate the human race on how to preserve our limited resources. These problems are all too real and they're all interconnected. Human rights violations, child abuse, refugees' rights, urban violence, religious intolerance, dictatorships, and of course, brutal civil wars. Remember the perfect plan I talked to you guys about that I tried to escape? That's where I come in. Brutal civil wars. Currently, there are over 300,000 child soldiers in the world, and I was one of them. There's a movie called Rambo, starring Sylvester Stallone. The first time I saw that movie, I wasn't sitting in a theater eating overpriced buttered popcorn while sipping on my Kool-Aid. Instead, I had a loaded AK-47 by my side, and I was being instructed. These were my instructions. This movie where you're about to see, this not a soldier where we want to make you be. Rambo, that was the guy I was expected to be at 4 years old. Because where I'm from, only Rambo survives. Where I'm from, if you're not Rambo, we don't have a place for you. If you're not Rambo, well, if you're not Rambo, you're good as dead. Born on the 4th of July was another training film for me. But this one taught me how to channel anger and pull myself out of the hole that I find myself in. Ron Kovic is a writer, a speaker, an author. The movie Born on the 4th of July was written about Ron's autobiography, a movie that most of us have seen. Ron has been a force in the peace movement for over 40 years. He is an outspoken supporter of human rights. Each year, Ron gives a special peace prize for the best short film towards people that are working for a better future. What you're about to see is an excerpt of this year's Ron Kovic Peace Prize Award. Enjoy.
You are what you see. You are a reflection of what you see. I couldn't have been no older than 7, 8 years old. I had a leather briefcase that I took from my stepfather. He was selling weed, so I used to see that. So I used to take parsley flakes and dump out all my mother parsley and put in the corn bags. I used to get BC medicine, like the BC medicine that like a powder, wrap that up, Monopoly money in a cap gun. And now I run around the hood in my own fantasy world, like I'm a gangster. Laugh to keep from crying, man. My name is Todd Carter. I'm from East Baltimore, up the hill, down the hill. You know what I mean? I save lives, man. I mediate conflict. I make people smile. Right now, my mission in life is to change the meaning of slick in the United States ghettos of America. Positive is the new cool, positive is the new slick. I'm a supervisor of Safe Streets East Baltimore. You know, the mission is to stop shootings and homicides. 2007, LV Park, people getting shot every day. And the LV Park cried out for some help. I used to be a part of the nonsense, and I was a leader in that. I had gun charges, I was selling drugs and stuff, you know what I mean? I was in the streets. I got a tattoo right here, say live by the gun, die by the gun. And I paid cigarettes for my tattoos in jail. From elementary to penitentiary. You always know you're gonna go there. I didn't know how or when, but I knew I was going. We didn't know what the word genocide mean. My mother always told me like, man, you killing your people, you killing your people. I didn't understand what she was talking about. You know, violence beget violence. I say rest in peace to the homies I grew up with. Fish, Party Marty, Douglas, Furby, Delaware, Fat Thomas, Antonio, Sean Penn, Travis, Dana, Will, Dre Wayne. Yeah, I love my brothers all the same. Turbo, Elroy, Sean B, Man, y'all really meant something to me. Lil Net, Lil Knuckles, Lil Gate, Melvin Smalls, Lil Pooh, Lil Ty, and his brother Darnell. Orc, Left Hand Ty, Dula, Fathead, Posse, Gil, Twan, Jaime, Cassandra, Tug, Miss Mary's son Brandon, Ray, Lil Ronald, Lil Earl, Bubba Head, Troy, Twin Shitty, Black Nut, Black Brenton, Lil Gary. Oh, that's East Baltimore, deaths. Dudes I knew personally. See, I mean, the funerals you think I attended. This part of Baltimore is like any other part of Baltimore, is poverty stricken. There was a lot of frustrated people. Frustration brings forth unwise decision making. So anywhere there's poverty, there's gonna be confusion. And that's Baltimore. Dudes don't value their life. So what do we matter to the world?
My name is Tyrone Carter. My father's name is Todd Carter. He worked at Safe Streets and John Hopkins. He stopped the homicide and the killing around East Baltimore. There is a struggle to be alive, and all his friends have been killed, and he survived. He just thanked God that he alive and have a nice job, and not on the street selling drugs. At night, he got to see what's going on outside, people getting shot, and it worried me that he gonna get shot. So I check where he at and go see him. That pain work at Safe Streets, the city would be fighting over nothing. They know that they want to stop shooting, but people don't know what to do with their life. They might have lost somebody in their family, and they want to hurt everybody. 10 or 20 years from this, the city will be better. Why it's going to be better? Because my father, people stop shooting, just fight with their words and not fight with weapons in their fists. And that I'll keep his legacy alive, keep the Safe Streets around here.
God bless East Baltimore with Safe Streets. A guy named Leon Farouk, God rest his soul, he's my mentor. He had a life bit, did like 30 years day for day. came home and implemented a program in here, and I was one of his recruits. My last bit is when I changed. I was sitting on the bunk, and the only book in there to read was the New Testament. And I used to have these dreams about, I didn't know if it was me following Jesus with a crowd or the crowd following me following Jesus. And that's where everything registered. Okay, I ain't asked to be here. God put me here. Right, so now that's why I'm so confident in my purpose, man. Dudes that was a part of the destruction of the neighborhood is now a part of the reconstruction of the neighborhood. We opened up June 2007. We went 22 months without a homicide. 22 months without a homicide, that's unheard of. Safe Streets is a beacon of light in the dark cave. Only thing you gotta do is walk towards the light. And you see the respect, you see the love. Love is stronger than hate. Love is stronger than fear. If you start telling your kids, if somebody hits you, you hug them. That'll break the cycle of violence. This was what matters. Babies, man. They're the ones that's gonna carry on the legacy. They're the ones that's gonna tell the next little man what he need to know.
Both Ron and I witnessed the unimaginable. We both had our eyes opened and our hearts broken by war, and we both survived. We survived to tell our stories in the hopes that our stories might help shape a future of peace. It is with great honor that I present to you Ron Kovic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. It's a wonderful night. I'd like to just take a moment, and I'd like to recognize Jeannie Myers, the co-founder. Where is Jeannie right now? Jeannie, would you please stand up?
There.
Jeannie Myers. We can't thank you enough, Jeannie, for everything you do. You're the heartbeat of my hero. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I'd also like to recognize two great peacemakers who have been committed to peace and nonviolence all of their lives. They're inspirations to me. They're my heroes. And they're here tonight. I'm so happy they were able to make it tonight. Teresa and Blaise Bonpane. Would you please raise your hand, stand up? Teresa and Blaise Bonpane. Great to have you tonight. We chose this film. Todd Carter had the courage to change. It's not easy to become a peacemaker. Martin Luther King once said that silence was betrayal. Silence is betrayal. Todd Carter chose not to be silent. And when he got out of prison, he went back into that violent-ridden community, and he challenged that community as a peacemaker. A peacemaker must be willing to risk, and there are often consequences to peacemaking. Sometimes you go to jail. Sometimes other things happen. Sometimes you lose friends. But Todd Carter knew that something needed to be done. He knew about the violence. He had lost many friends. So he made that difficult decision to step over that line. And that's why this film is so important, because it speaks to all of us It speaks to our conscience. It speaks to the importance of all of us being able to recognize injustice when we see it, wrong when it's being committed, a war that should not be fought, crimes that are being committed in our name that should not happen. And the courage it takes to raise your voice, to step over that line. I remember the year before Dr. King was assassinated, and I believe it was April 4th, 1967, was it? At the Riverside Church in New York. He gave a speech. I believe the speech was called his Beyond Vietnam speech. And Dr. King that night spoke, or that day, he spoke about the difficulty that it was to speak against the war. It was his coming out for the first time against the war. And he received a tremendous amount of flack, a tremendous amount of criticism for opposing that war from many different factions, many different groups, even people he was associated with, his own allies, his own supporters. And it took a great deal of courage for Dr. King to speak out. I think we have to find the peacemaker within ourselves. And we have to find, especially today, when the issues are so painfully difficult, we have to find the courage to raise our voices, to speak out, and to be willing to risk. That's why Blessed is the Peacemaker is the winner of the Peace Prize this year. I'm proud to be with all of you, and I hope you get a chance to see the entire film. God bless all of you, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Erin. Thank you. We've spent most of this night talking about the world at large and sometimes about my story. And now, I would like to take you guys on another journey about my story. See, I grew up where the only thing I feared wasn't God, but children high on drugs, carrying AK-47s, taller than they were. I was one of those children. I had, you know what, take had out. I believe that there is no such thing as God, that there is man, and man plays God. Most often, the men with guns have the power to play God. They play God on my life. They play God on the life of my countrymen. They play God on the life of my friends. They play God on the life of Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown in Ferguson. See, after the war ended, I was so angry. Angry at everyone for everything that is done to me. See, I was part of the lost generation in my country. The generation that had seen and done more evil than you could possibly imagine. I was part of that generation. When the war ended, my community had a plan for us. That all child soldiers were going to be nothing but gangsters, thieves, and drug addicts. And sadly enough, most former child soldiers ended up in prison or got himself killed. I've always had this belief that you can give a man the world and his world could crumble. But if you give that man an education, he will rebuild his world. I wanted to use my education as a way to forget about my years of war. But as I get older, I realize that I don't have to forget. I have to learn how to live with my past. That's what I'm doing. And in the hopes, I hope education will help me rebuild my life and help me help others rebuild theirs. Thank you. Sierra Leone is about 9,750 miles from here, approximately, give or take. A version of what I went through exists all over the world, including right here in Los Angeles, the same way it exists in East Baltimore. 2 summers ago, I had the opportunity to speak at Lenox Middle School. Lenox is 30 minutes outside of here. There, I asked a question, and the answer to my question was terrifying. I asked, who here had been affected by gun violence? Who here knows someone that's been killed by gun violence? More than half the class raised their hands. And these kids are barely 13 years of age. They too live in a war zone, 30 minutes outside of here. Just 30 minutes, imagine that. Coming to the United States, I'd always thought America is the perfect land. There were no heroes where I grew up. Who could possibly be your hero? The guy on your right, who just ordered a son to kill their entire family. The guy on your left, who just told someone to dip their hands in hot oil and wipe off their skin while saying they're no longer involved in politics. How about the guy in front of you, who just massacred an entire family? Or the guy behind you, who just decapitated an innocent child? Again, I've always thought of America as the perfect land. I knew America had problems, but nothing in comparison to what I went through. I thought kids in America have it all. But all that changed in 2007. The first book that I read when I came to this country was A Freedom Rider's Diary by Erin Gruwell and her students of Long Beach, California. I automatically saw that there are 2 Americas. One was the America that I saw depicted on television growing up in Sierra Leone. And the other was the reality that I learned from Erin's students. The reality that faced every black boy and man in this country. The reality of Trayvon Martin. The reality of Mike Brown in Ferguson. These events and Erin's work inspired me to write this poem. Oh, beautiful America. For I fear that today might be my last. For the color of my skin had made me into a gambbanger. The ink on my arms had made me into a threat. For I fear to wear a hoodie because I might be seen as a thug. You have taken my kindness for weakness, my silence as speechless. Dismiss my uniqueness as foreign. called my language slangs. See my mistakes as defeat, consider my success as accidental. Trivialize my intellect as potential. When I question, it means I'm unaware. To voice concern is discontentment. If I stand up for myself, I am being too defensive. If I don't trust them, I am being too apprehensive. I am fake if I assimilate. I am defiant if I separate. Oh, America, the beautiful land. I was so inspired by Erin that I wanted to meet her. Here's someone that has dedicated her life to helping not only children in room 203 of Wilson High, but to kids like myself, who now believe that there are indeed amazing teachers in the world. It is with great honor that I introduce to you Erin Gruwell, my personal hero, in honor of her work to speak out when no one did, believed when no one believed, and to give voice to people who had no voice. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Erin Gruwell.
Although my title is teacher, I stand beside you and in front of you as a student. I am awestruck by the art and the music and the activism and the courage of everyone who has stood on the stage before me. You see, I am an ordinary person who has extraordinary experiences. When students and teachers every day walk into my classroom and they've learned how to put down their fist, put down their gun, and pick up a pen. My students walked into my classroom years ago, September 6, 1994, 20 years ago, and they were jaded, just like Mohamed. They'd seen things that no kid should see, experienced things no kid should experience, and they'd given up. At the age of 14, they thought they were doomed to drop out of school at 14, be behind bars at the age of 15, and 6 feet under by the time they were 18. And the idea of this woman standing before them with polka dots and pearls and this perceived right privilege did not resonate with my students. They looked me up and down and thought, who is this crazy cheerleader from hell? And what do these sonnets and these stories have to do with my life about survival? They thought there's no way that this crazy woman understands what it feels like in the pit of a stomach to be hungry or to be scared or to be angry. And I looked at my students who were miserable, and their sole purpose was to make me as miserable as they were. And they did a really good job. As my syllabus came back at me in the form of a paper airplane with a question, why do we have to read books written by dead white guys in tights? Which is a very profound question. The idea that I dared to dream that my students could immortalize their story, that they could leave a legacy, just like that little girl in that tiny little attic, or that young boy, Elie Wiesel, who rode into Auschwitz-Birkenau in a cattle car, or that courageous young woman in the streets of Sarajevo, Zlata Filipovic. Imagine, I told my students, imagine if you can write that obituary you've never read. Imagine if you could give a voice to the voiceless. Imagine if there is hope for each and every one of you that is hopeless. So I wanted my students to pick up a pen and to write. And maybe, just maybe, we could send it off like a message in a bottle and someone would listen to those cries for help. But we did just that. We wrote and we wrote. And we sent off our manuscript, and in that classroom we called it the little book that could, in honor of that train going down the tracks, saying, I think I can, I think I can. We sent our book to every single publishing house in our country, and every single one of them rejected us. And so we tried again. We tried again, and my students began to hone their craft, to edit, to write, to rewrite. And we sent it off one more time to just one house. So I suppose it's as it should be, that the only house that decided to take a chance on a teacher and 150 kids was the same publishing house that published a book written by a little girl in a tiny little attic. A little girl that picked up her pen, picked up her diary, and gave a voice to the voiceless, who had the courage to say that in spite of everything, I truly believe that people are good at heart. Mohamed gives each and every one of us that belief that people are good at heart. And just because people do bad things, that doesn't mean they're a bad person. So when that 3.5-year-old boy watched the most horrendous thing, man's inhumanity, and yet he lived to tell, and yet he was able to bear witness, and yet stand in front of each and every one of us rocking that tuxedo tonight. I sat in the audience and felt like a student. I wanted to raise my hand. I wanted to ask questions. I wanted to take notes. I wanted to take a mental picture. Because even though I don't know his parents, I felt like a mom tonight. I felt like my heart was going to leap out of the chest. I was so proud. Because for each and every one of us who have that title of teacher, that's all we want. We don't care about those grades after you're gone. It's the lessons. And when you can teach one to teach another, that's the best part of critical thinking. So like I said, I stepped on this stage as an educator, but I am humbled to be Mohamed's student. I'm also humbled that Mohamed is now part of our Freedom Writer family. Freedom Writers have gone on to teach teachers. There are several of them in the audience tonight. And Mohamed is now a proud Freedom Writer teacher. And just like my original students who stood on a line and said so much by not saying anything at all, by playing a silly game called the line game, I got to watch Mohamed stand on that line and say so much. And just like my students who picked up a plastic champagne glass filled with sparkling apple cider, I got to see Mohamed pick up that glass filled with sparkling apple cider and to make a toast. And as each and every one of those teachers left our wake and thought, I'm going to go teach one to teach another, I am so proud that each and every destination that takes you, Mohamed, to classrooms, to auditoriums, to stages, to bars, to restaurants, to Facebook, you are going to continue to teach one to teach another. I would have never thought that this little book that could was the first book that you would ever read when you came to America. Makes me so proud. Because I remember my students saying, do you think anyone is ever going to read this? We thought maybe we will. Maybe we'll be in cahoots with our parents. We never knew that you would. And so thank you for paying it forward. And until my dying breath, I'm going to continue to tell your story, to learn from you, and to honor your legacy. So thank you. Okay, how good does he look? How good does he look?
I have to admit, when I first met Erin, when I went to the event, it was completely by accident. You know, I didn't want to go until Jeannie said, we're going. And I was just like, okay. So she's like, it's Erin. I'm like, okay, let's go. I was really excited. You don't understand. You know, like when you have a kid eating chocolate or a kid in the chocolate factory? That was me when I met Erin. But now I would like to introduce you guys to Dana Williams. Some of you might have seen her recently on Rising Stars. Dana Williams is a member of the My Hero family. I've asked her to sing us a song tonight that meant a great deal to me and to my journey. Ladies and gentlemen, Dana Williams.
To be here.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I don't know about you, but I would like to give her another round of applause. I tell you my story because I was one of the 300,000 children caught in the crossfire. I tell you my story because I was one of the 56 million children who couldn't go to school. I tell you my story because I was one of the 43 million refugees forced to flee conflict. Think about all those numbers. 56 million, 43 million, and 300,000. Process those numbers. Good. Tell you my story so that you can put a name, a face, and an actual person behind every children who have been marginalized by violence. I don't tell you my story to get you sympathy. You can keep your sympathy. I have enough of my own. A lot of people have helped me on this journey. this journey to be here. There's a part that I left out I didn't tell you guys, and that was how I got on this stage. Remember that 3.5-year-old kid who tried to cross the river? The second time I tried to run away was in America. This time I was 13.5 years old. $50 in my pocket. A nano iPod that had the 50 Cent album Live Free or Die Trying and the Akon Convict on repeat. I played that song back to back, those two albums. I left the airport, and on the side of the airport says $2.50 on the cabs. So I got into the cabs and I told the guy, take me to Times Square, because Times Square was the place that I've seen on television. It was amazing. We arrived at Times Square. I took out $4 out of my money and I gave it to the driver and I said, keep the change. Remember, the cab says $2.50. The guy turned and looked at me and says, it's $40. Now, when he said $40, I didn't think 40 United States dollars. I automatically translated into my local currency, which took me a while to do, and realized that was a lot of money. I didn't want to give him the money. But for the first time, I found myself being scared. So I left. I told him to take me back, and I was going to go home. As I stood in the line, waiting to board that plane back, the questions of who was I going to, where was I going, starts coming back. And then I jumped again. Like a 3.5-year-old boy by the river, this time when I jumped, I knew how to swim. I went back to New York City. This once magical city has lost all its magic. There's so many people, but I felt like a ghost and no one could see me, and it started pouring. I was worse than a homeless person. See, a homeless person in New York knows where to go at night to sleep. I didn't know where to go to sleep. But then I started remembering numbers, and I started calling numbers of people I've met, and I find myself on the move. I started moving from there to Delaware, from Delaware to Rhode Island, from Rhode Island back to New York, which is where I connected with Austin. The first documentary that you saw was done by Austin. Austin left his comfort in New Jersey to come to Sierra Leone and to document my story. Austin's story introduced me to the world. His story introduced me to Anita Townsend, who was a principal at the time in Canada. Anita introduced me to Molly Beckley, who is here tonight. I'd like to give a round of applause to Molly Beckley. Despite the distance, Molly and her student took it upon themselves to send me to one of the best private schools in Sierra Leone. I connected with them, and Molly introduced me to Jeannie. And here we are today. A lot of people have helped me on my journey. People saw how much I loved education, and they helped me to pursue that one dream of mine, which is to get an education. Until I realized I have to read 500 pages a week. But regardless, I'm here today because of all these people who stepped outside of their comfort zone to help me. You'll be amazed at the ripple effect you will create if you step outside of your comfort zone to help the person next to you. We all want to change the world, but the way we're going about it, I'm sorry, it's wrong. You cannot change the mass, but what you can do is change one individual at a time. What you can do is change yourself, and by changing yourself, you will change someone next to you, and that creates a ripple effect. I'm here today because of people. People who believed in me, and because I believed in myself. I'm here today because I do not want to be a footsteps in the sand that get wiped away by high tide. Because I did not want to go to prison. Come on, how will I do in prison? But our next performance is by Folk City, and they're gonna sing us a beautiful song. I don't know about you guys, but I think I'm ready to dance and sing. I cannot sing. I think I'll kill a baby with my voice, but I'll try to mumble and pretend like I'm singing. So ladies and gentlemen, I would like to present to you Folk City. You know, I have to admit, I thought, you know, no offense, but white people can't clap and beat. But we did pretty well. That being said, I would like to conclude the night by saying thank you to everyone that has made this day a reality. To Jeannie Myers, To Rita, who stayed up late every night to work with me. To Dylan and everyone else up there. To Dog, the stage manager who helped put this together. And of course, to everyone else behind me. It's going to take me a while to say all their names. So thank you very much. The night is still early. It's Saturday. Go out and have fun. Thank you. Have a good one. Thank you.